Hey guys, it is Tuesday, April 16th. Bitcoin's about 63,000. And this episode is why simple wins. And, in math, you always look for the simplest possible proof. And the same is true in physics. You want that equation, E equals mc squared, right? The simple, crisp, simple solution. And I think Bitcoin is the simplest possible decentralized money that could ever exist. It really is. And I really think if you ask yourself, is Bitcoin working? There's certain things you may not like about Bitcoin, but if you ask yourself, is it working? I think you have to answer that question in the affirmative. I think you have to say, yes, Bitcoin is working. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that this graph. This graph, to me, is the single biggest proof that it's working. This is how many addresses own $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. Now, that's not the same as users. Users, obviously, 100 people have said, Fred, you don't understand. Addresses can be the same user. I understand that. But it is a fact that the number of addresses with $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in them is growing at this power law of almost 5, right? And for the number right now, we're almost at 4 million users have $10,000 worth of Bitcoin, and we have about almost 20 million users that have $1,000 worth of Bitcoin right now. So, this number has been growing very, very consistently. It is not just a few whales who have it. It's millions of people who are starting to store their money in Bitcoin. And this is growing almost like an exponential, quasi-exponential, I would call it. And so you do not see graphs like this of things that are not working. This is working. There is no need to fix it, okay? So why is it working? Well, I think one of the reasons that it's working is that it's so simple, right? Bitcoin is this completely simple, resilient protocol that hasn't changed all that much in the 15 years in which it was invented. And we just saw a block just pass just right now. Every 10 minutes or so, there's a new block. I mean, it can be as long as several hours. It could be short. On average, the median time is more like 6 minutes, but it's very simple. And each block, you can inspect each block, right? And it's very simple. It's not like a Solana block, which happens, every half second. It's not like Ethereum blocks, which contain all kinds of stuff. This is very simple transactions. And, and even despite the halving coming, it's still relatively cheap. It's $3 to send a Bitcoin transaction right now, okay? So even with all these ordinals, all the congestion, everything else, it's $3 to send any amount of money. You can send $1 billion for $3. So this is absolutely something that is completely working right now. And the last thing I would touch on is this idea of nodes, right? So, a couple of years ago, I set up a Bitcoin node. Now, you don't need to set up a Bitcoin node. You're not going to make any more money necessarily by setting a Bitcoin node if all you're doing is just holding Bitcoin and transacting Bitcoin. But with about $200 worth of equipment, you can monitor every Bitcoin transaction that comes in. You can verify that it's a valid Bitcoin transaction. You can inspect any address on Bitcoin, and you can do so privately so that nobody will know that you're inspecting that address. That may or may not be an address that you control, right? So this is a very, very powerful concept. The idea that anybody in the world can set up these nodes. Now, in practice, while there's a lot of these nodes out there, it's less than 1% of all people that have set these things up. Now, you can go through the trouble of doing this. It will take you a couple days to fully download all of Bitcoin. There's a little bit of There's a little bit of setup, or you can buy something like this, which is sort of a Bitcoin node in a box. And I think things like this may or may not get ubiquitous. I mean, some people in my feed have been saying, yeah, they're going to be everywhere. Everybody's going to run a node. I don't think everybody's going to run a node, and I don't think that's needed. But I do think the fact that we're keeping the network relatively simple, so we don't have to have the network run in 100 big data centers that some government can shut down, is very important, right? We have to keep Bitcoin so that it's a decentralized, very compact as possible. It is. I'm in agreement with that. So I don't want it to get more complicated or bloated. I think this is something that that I agree with. I agree with Adam Back on this and others. And so, perhaps we may want to add some things to make, Bitcoin support other L2s and things like that, perhaps. But, in the interim, what we don't want is we don't want to have a monstrosity like BSV, where you have these, 100 megabyte blocks, and there's about 3 data centers in the world that actually operate them. So that's my take today. Summary: Bitcoin's working. It's working great in terms of, it's gathering deposits, it's gathering usage, people are using it as a new money. So Bitcoin is working. It's working because it's very simple. It was designed right from the get-go. And the ability to run a node is great. It's a great thing that, is not needed. I disagree with Luke Dasher Jr. that the whole system's broken if we don't all run nodes. But I do think it's a great thing. So that's my episode 83. And please, if you like my content, please subscribe. I'm kind of a subscriber junkie, and I need the hits that'll get more people interested in getting on a show with me and talking to me, and that helps everybody out because it improves the content. So thank you very much, and I'll catch you later.